book lovers? It's Jenny at Julie Baby Jen, and today we are going to be talking about the question to YA or not YA, and that is the question. Basically, I'm going to be talking about more of my perspective on this. This is just kind of a my opinion kind of a video. Everybody thinks a little bit different, but I want to talk specifically about why I read YA, if I'm reading more diverse books and why, and I want to talk basically kind of a little bit about the whole YA phenomenon that, we've been talking about this I think for a while, but I just kind of want to talk a little bit more about it today. I kind of got this idea and was thinking about this from a video that Book and Jams just recently uploaded, and I watched today. And she was talking about her top 5 YA series she's not going to finish, and so she was talking about those series and why. But she started out the video talking a little bit about YA and people who maybe are reading more YA and the booktube community, why so many people read YA, and just kind of talking a little bit about that, and how she's been reading so much YA and she wants to get away from that a little bit and move to more adult. So I kind of wanted to talk about that as well. So first of all, on my reading, I would say, I'm going to kind of go back a ways. So my reading tastes have changed a lot over the years. When I was a teenager, I did not really read YA. First of all, YA was not a real big thing when I was a teenager, but there were kind of YA books. It wasn't really classified as that. I guess they were kind of teen books, but you kind of went right from children's books right to adult. There were some in between, but YA would have been more like the Babysitter's Club maybe, or Sweet Valley High, a lot of series like that, and they were really more in the children's book section. They didn't really have a separate YA thing. I kind of quit reading a lot of those books when I was in middle school. When I got to high school, I started reading adult, and I went right on. I loved murder mysteries and suspense, so I read a lot, and horror. So I read a lot of Dean Koontz, Stephen King, Mary Higgins Clark, a lot of that kind of stuff. I liked mysteries, or I liked horror, I liked suspense. I really got into that. Then as I started getting into high school, we started reading some classics and things, for school. And I got really into those, so I started reading more and more of that. Some I read for class. There was a lot that I just read. I went to my library and read a lot of classics, tons of them. Sci-fi classics too, like Stranger in a Strange Land. I read, of course, Jane Austen and all that. I read a lot of Fitzgerald. I read Lord of the Flies. It was really big. A Brave New World I loved. So I read a lot of like sci-fi fantasy adult, I guess, was really big at that time. So I was reading a lot of novels from like the 30s, 40s, and 50s, classics and things. So I was reading a lot of adult stuff. Some of that kind of falls under YA as far as age range. Like Lord of the Flies is really a YA classic, is really what it is, but it wasn't classified as that back then because there was no such thing. So there's a lot of great classics in literature. And then I also started reading a lot of literary fiction, especially when I left high school, and right after that is when Oprah started her book club. I don't know if anybody remembers that. For a while there, it felt like reading was kind of fallen by the wayside, except for really popular books. And then she started her book club, and everybody started reading. And they started reading a lot of literary fiction and classics. That's what all of her novels that she picked were. And book clubs started cropping up everywhere. Now book clubs is a big thing, online book clubs, everything, and they're still reading a lot of that literary fiction. So for my younger adult years, early 20s, I was reading a lot of that. Then Twilight happened, and I read Twilight and loved it. I just adored it. I'm like, wow, this is great, so unique and original. Well, it wasn't that original. At the time it felt like it, but there was a lot of adult paranormal that was going on that I just hadn't been reading any of that, and I started reading some of that. But really the YA thing, I feel, really took off with Twilight. Right after that was The Hunger Games, and that's where it really, I think, took off. The Hunger Games just exploded YA, and I think those early series is what got a lot of us into YA. And then because those books sold so well, that's what publishers started looking for. They're looking for what sells. And so I think that's kind of the reason that a lot of us started reading YA, especially a lot of adults. So there's a couple of reasons why I think people have read YA a lot in the past or are reading YA right now. And I think the first reason is it was a saturation of the market. Most of the really good books that were coming out, this is like the last 5 years, have been YA. Especially marketing wise, they're marketed more. And so that seems like they're kind of all over the place. That has been what a lot of the big books and the trends have been following, is YA. So that's the first reason. I think that's just because there's so many books out and there's so much content and there's so much to choose from. That's what people are reading. That's number one. Number two, I think it's because they're priced lower. If you go buy a new book in the bookstore, just go to like a Barnes & Noble or a BAM or whatever. Go to an actual bookstore. I know a lot of people shop online, but if you go to a bookstore, some people still do that, and look around, you go to the YA section, a paperback is going to cost you around $10. If you go to the adult section, a paperback is going to cost you anywhere from like $16 to $20. If you buy a brand new YA hardback, it's going to cost you between $15 and $20. And an adult hardback will cost you between $25 and $30. So I think that was another reason they're cheaper. And the reason they're cheaper is because they're meant for a teen audience, and teens don't have as much money. And then another reason I think is they're incredibly entertaining. I think YA is produced with an entertainment factor. That is the whole point of a YA book, I think, in my opinion. Now, sometimes you'll get like great literature in there, great writing. You'll get some really awesome stuff. But in the end, YA is meant to be entertainment. It is supposed to entertain us. And most of us, when we read, want to be entertained. I mean, I love to read literary fiction and really deep, gripping novels, just as much as the next person does, but you can only read so much of that. I mean, most people who read that like constantly will only read 1 or 2 books a month because they take longer to get through. There's so much you invest in there. I mean, you're gonna still go other places for entertainment because it is entertaining, but in a totally different way. Whereas YA in general tends to be quick, entertaining reads, and I think that there's a huge factor into that. We just want, a lot of us that read YA read a lot of books because you can read them quickly. They don't take as much focus and concentration. It's really entertainment, and you'll get some wonderful, well-written books that maybe are a little deeper or take you a little bit further. Not saying that there aren't those out there, but in general, YA is entertainment. That's what it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's wonderful. I mean, that's what sells these books, is the entertainment factor. Ooh, this looks interesting. Especially a lot of the sci-fi, dystopian, fantasy kind of stuff, paranormal. Paranormal was all about fun entertainment. They're not to be taken that seriously for the most part. So I think those are the main reasons why YA took off, why it's become such a big trend, why so many people read it and are still reading it. I mean, there's still a ton of booktubers that are reading it. Now, adult. I think that the trend is starting to switch back a little bit. I think adult is becoming more and more looked at as something to be entertained with and to read, and they're finally starting to catch on that, hey, adult can be entertaining too, and it sure can be, especially sci-fi and fantasy. I mean, those trends really haven't ever really gone out of style. I think that fantasy is just as popular as it has been adult fantasy, but it's become more so. I think YA readers are starting to get into it more. Part of it is they're growing up, but also even us adult readers, we're starting to rediscover how much we love that stuff. A couple of good examples I can think of is like the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin has come out, and that's become really big. Station 11, which was a PA novel, but it's an adult one. Who knew? An adult PA novel? Wow! And it's really good. I read it. It's really well written. The Martian was a really big one. And then you have more like chick lit stuff, which has become more and more popular, but has an edge to it. Like Me Before You, Jojo Maya's, her books are chick lit, but they have a little bit of a deeper edge to them. They're not real light chick lit. And then you have more like suspense mystery, like Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins, Gone Girl. Those have become really popular. all across the board with all readers. Or Liane Moriarty, her Husband's Secret, Little Big Lies, those books, those are really popular too. And again, they're chick lit with an edge, a mystery, something else to them besides just the chick lit factor. So I think adult is swinging back more in favor. So my reading habits have kind of gone that way as well. I'm still reading a ton of YA, and I don't anticipate stopping reading YA anytime soon because I just still really love YA books. I think they are fun reads. Plus the fact that I have bought so many. I have so many on my shelf to read, and most of them are YA. But the last year, maybe 2 years, I've noticed how much YA I was reading. And like I said, I didn't always read YA, and I don't want to miss all these other wonderful books that are coming out. So I have started reading more adult. I've also been reading more nonfiction, which I used to read a lot of too. I've been reading a lot more autobiographies and biographies, memoirs, general nonfiction kind of books. I've been reading books in verse. A lot of those have been YA. I want to expand that a little bit further to adult poetry. And then, like I said, adult fiction, literary fiction, I still love that, and I've been reading more of that. Suspense, sci-fi, fantasy, I'm starting to get more into again. So yeah, I think that in general, a lot of people are starting to read a little more adult. I don't think that YA is done. I think YA is still going to sell. I think it's, now that they've unleashed the beast, I don't think we're going to put it back in the box. There's still tons of teen readers that read that stuff. Another thing I want to mention in YA, my trends, I tended to start YA with a lot of paranormal and sci-fi and dystopian reads, some fantasy, and as it's moved on, I've actually started reading a lot more contemporaries, which is kind of odd for me to be reading teen romance books, but they're so gosh dang cute. I think another reason people like to read teen YA books is because it brings them back to that time, especially as an adult. It brings us back to that time when love was sweet, innocent, and maybe not quite as complicated as life is now. And I think that we like to go back there and kind of reminisce and remember that time, and that kind of brings that to the forefront. Some of these cute reads really makes us like, yay, this is so much fun, you know, kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of that going on as too. Another thing is adult romance still sells like crazy, and because I think that romance always will sell. There's just something about romance and love that we all just gravitate toward, and that just is it. Not saying that you have to have romance for a good book. I think that there's a lot of great books without any romance in them, and sometimes it's kind of a nice change in pace to not have a lot of romance, or to have no romance at all in a book. I think that's actually kind of revolutionary, and I see more and more of those trends going on too. But anyway, so why or why not YA? I say I'm still going to YA, but I'm going to try to get a little more diverse in my reading. I think I've gone that way more and more, and I've discovered some great authors, some great books by doing so. I think that kind of ends my thought process on the whole YA phenomenon and where we are now with it. I still see YA as being a pretty big thing, but I think that adult is making a comeback as well. Another thing is MG books. I think MG books are making kind of a comeback too. It kind of started with Rick Riordan's books. I think a lot more people read MG than they used to that aren't kids. And I think there's something great about great MG books. I think they're a little harder to discover, but there's some great MG books out there. And so I think if you haven't read MG, go for it. If you like YA, you'll probably like these. Some of them get a little older MG, and you probably like those a little more. I'm thinking of like Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. Those are considered MG books, but they read like YA. And The School for Good and Evil is a really great series that reads a little more like YA, but they are MG books. Of course, Rick Riordan's books. Oh, the Septimus Heap series by Angie Sage. That is one series that I do not see a lot, and it is an amazing series. It reminds me a lot of early Harry Potter. I really suggest reading the Septimus Heap series. It's so much fun. That's all I got off the top of my head. But anyway, leave me any comments below on what you think about this topic. I'd love to hear your opinions too, or what you like to read, or if your tastes are changing as well. I hope everyone has a good day. I will talk to you later. Bye.